The Oklahoma Sooners kept their college football playoff hopes alive with a gutsy win over the LSU Tigers.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and thank you for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network. The Oklahoma Sooners get the win. Simply put, Oklahoma is 10-2, 17-13 win over the LSU Tigers, closed the season with 4-game winning streak, 4-0 in November. Again, not a pretty win. Not one of those that you're going to look back on fondly and say, man, that was a great game by the Oklahoma Sooners. The offense was just electric. They just put so many points on the board. It was just a great game to watch. No, it was a frustrating game. It was a game that you look back on and you're like, hey, we got out of there with a win. That's it. And that's really the best thing that you can say about this team is they just keep winning. And what is the only thing that matters in this sport? Wins. It's not about how you win. As much as college football wants to make it about how you win, it's about wins. Oklahoma has won 10 times this year. They've gone 10-2 against a schedule that nobody thought that they could win 10 games with. Maybe Oklahoma fans, we were the only ones confident that this team could go 10-2. You look everywhere outside of the state of Oklahoma, everywhere outside of the state, outside of the city of Norman. You look up to Stillwater, down to Texas, Kansas, across the SEC, and people thought Oklahoma would be lucky to win 8 or 9 games this year. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Am I right? Am I right? Because the Oklahoma Sooners have won 10 games, and it hasn't all been luck. They've done it despite an offense that isn't very good. It's average at best. They've done it with a defense that's one of the best in the country. They've done it with a head coach who has developed. Oh, it's a developmental game. The game of football is. Brent Venables has gotten better at some of the things that we were concerned about through his first few years of this season, right? He got better as a game manager. He got better as a situational head coach. You got better on special teams, an area that was a cause for concern coming into the season. This team is really, really good on defense. Elite. We'll say it. They're elite on defense. They're really, really good on special teams. And if you're really, really good in 2 out of the 3 phases, you're going to have a chance to win a lot of football games. Would we all love for them to go put 40 points on the board and have 450, 500 total yards of offense and just make offense look easy? Yeah, it'd be nice to see that. But as Jay and I talked about earlier this week, that's not who we are this year. We are not a team that's going to make offense look easy in 2025. And yet, your team, your Oklahoma Sooners, continue to find ways to win. And that's, again, all that matters. This team found ways to win over the last month after dropping that game to Ole Miss, right? A game that they had a chance. Ole Miss punts the ball back to them. We fumble the punt. You get the ball down to their end of the field and you're facing, 3rd and 5, 4th and 5, and you can't come up with 2 plays to extend a drive and potentially go tie the game. Well, you know what? After that loss to Ole Miss, Oklahoma flipped the script. They found ways to win against Tennessee, against Alabama, against Missouri, and now against LSU. And so as much as we'd all love to see an Oklahoma offense be respectable, be consistent, just appreciate the fact that despite an offense that can turn the ball over 3 times like it did today and almost turn it over a couple more times, despite that, you have a football team. Football's a team sport. You have a football team that can overcome 3 interceptions and still win a football game. That is crazy to me. Because you're watching this game, you're watching back-to-back interceptions. First, you're watching the interception on the first John Mateer attempt of the day. Gets batted in the air, picked off, returned to the 5-yard line. Shout out to John Mateer for not giving up on the play and pushing Harold Perkins out of bounds at the 5 or the 4. And then double shout out to Peyton Bowen for intercepting Michael Van Buren's pass on the very next play. That's the heart of this team. This is a team that isn't going to quit. They're never going to lay down. They're never going to give up. They're never going to give in. They're going to fight till the very last whistle. And that's what they did today. They just kept fighting. Even when you got down 10-3 and John Mateer's thrown back-to-back interceptions and your offense just isn't finding much traction, whether in the run game or the passing game, doesn't matter. They're not finding a whole lot. And then, oh, wait, we get a perfect play call with perfect execution. And Deion Burks is able to follow a wall of Oklahoma offensive linemen for a long touchdown to tie the game. And at that point, you're like, bet, let's go. It's a whole new ball game. You've got life again. And then even after LSU is able to get the field goal, you're thinking, hey, we still got a chance at this thing. And sometimes, again, you create the mistakes by your opponent, whether it's pressure on the quarterback that leads to turnovers, or it's having a dynamic weapon like an Isaiah Sategna that creates coverage busts, right? We saw it back in the Hollywood Brown era, right? People would always be like, how do you let a guy like Hollywood Brown get behind you? Well, sometimes it doesn't matter what you try to do. They're just so quick and so fast that they get behind you before you realize that they've gotten behind you. Like before they even really get behind you, they're behind you, if that makes any sense. And so Isaiah Sategna finding a way to get that wide open. John Mateer did not miss on that throw. You could argue he underthrew it, but thrown into the big wins. If you were listening to the radio broadcast like I was while tuning into the game, the wins were heavy. Chris Plank, Gabe Eichert, we're talking a lot about the wind and how it was affecting everything, the passing game management, how they might kick field goals, all that jazz. Well, John Mateer put it out there and Isaiah Sategna didn't miss. He caught the ball and ran away from the rest of the LSU defense, and you get the win. And again, all that matters is you won. So this is a team that, again, 10-2. The college football playoff is very much alive. I'm not going to entertain any noise from the outside that is trying to argue that Oklahoma doesn't deserve a playoff spot, because that is utter nonsense. We may talk about it on the show for Monday, but it's absolute utter nonsense. Anybody that's out there trying to claim that Oklahoma is not a playoff team, miss me with all of it, because if you would have asked those people before the start of the season if Oklahoma made it to 10-2, would they be a playoff team? 100% of national analysts, Texas fans, SEC fans would have said that Oklahoma would have 100% be a playoff team if they made it to 10-2. Well, lo and behold, we made it to 10-2. Oklahoma's going to the playoff. Everybody else that's got a lot to say about that, you can cry tears, go buy you a box of Kleenex, make sure you have enough for that college football playoff rankings that sets the playoff bracket, because you're all going to be real, real sad when this Oklahoma team is in the playoff and likely hosting a playoff game. Again, doesn't matter how, it matters how many. Now, we'll talk about what Oklahoma's chances are in the playoff when we get to it, but none of that matters because you're in. Let's talk about what the defense did on Saturday against LSU. We'll talk about John Mateer's game as well, because listen, a lot of not so great, some good, enough good. We'll talk about that coming up here on Locked On Sooners. The holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. The quality is exactly what you hope for. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking even easier. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now, thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network as well. So the defense is the key to this thing. Oklahoma's defense came up once again, played absolutely huge against, yes, not a good LSU offense. I'm not going to sit here and act like this is Bama's offense or Tennessee's offense or even Missouri's offense. LSU's offense is not very good. They're just not. They're one of the bottom 4 or 5 offenses in the SEC. And Oklahoma's defense took care of business. And they did it. They got 1 turnover. They forced a key turnover on downs. You got enough plays. Again, that's what you need out of your defense. You need them to make the stops when they need to make the stops. And they came up huge, keeping LSU off the board in the first quarter when they got the ball at the 5-yard line. Remember, this is a lot like, Oklahoma and Tennessee from 2024, right? We get the turnover, we get the ball at the 5-yard line, and then we turn it right back over. That was a huge play in that game. This was a huge play in this game. And Peyton Bowen's interception, it gave Oklahoma an opportunity to go win the game. Because if LSU gets up 7-0 to start the game, that totally changes the complexion of the game. But time and time again, this defense rises to the occasion and makes plays just when you think they're about to break, right? They bend sometimes and sometimes they'll break, but this team rises to the occasion. This defense rises to the occasion. And against LSU, they were great. They held LSU to under 200 total yards. They held them to 2.9 yards per carry. They held them to, where is it at? 3.6 yards per play. LSU was just 2 of 14 on 3rd down. They were 0 for 1 on 4th down. Pretty good. Pretty good performance. And even in a game when you didn't get a ton of, you only had 5 tackles for loss, didn't have any sacks in this game, shockingly. That's one of those things that just doesn't happen to Oklahoma. But LSU did a really good job getting the ball out of Michael Van Buren's hands quickly, using some bootleg stuff to get him out of the pocket. And that's crazy to me that Oklahoma didn't have any sacks. It felt like it during the game. Man, they're just seemingly not getting a ton of pressure on Van Buren. And it's because LSU did a good job scheming things up to keep him out of pressure. Good offensive coordinators, or at least offensive coordinators wanting to minimize the damage and the risk to their young quarterback, should do such things. So Oklahoma, again, got the 1 turnover, lost the turnover battle, but because LSU was 2 of 14 on 3rd down, that kind of makes up for it. You forced LSU to punt the ball 9 times. Crazy. You forced him to punt 9 times. Van Buren threw for less than 100 yards. He was 14 of 25 for 96 yards. 14 of 25 for 96 yards, meaning they were trying to get the ball out of his hands quickly. They did not want to risk anything down the field. They did not want to try Oklahoma secondary, which, listen, they made a play here and there, but they were not wanting to test Oklahoma down the field. He got the ball out in under 2.5 seconds on average, according to Pro Football Focus. His average depth of target, Michael Van Buren's average depth of target in this game, was 3.8 yards per pass attempt. His passing depth was super. He had, let's see, he had 5 pass attempts beyond 10 yards. 9 of his pass attempts were beyond or behind the line of scrimmage. So again, this was a schemed up game where LSU was wanting to get the ball out of his hands quickly and not put him in a position to take a lot of pressure. And they did a really good job. Credit to Oklahoma's defense for rallying and tackling. There weren't a lot of missed tackles in this game. Oklahoma's defense really stood up. They were only credited with 6 missed tackles. There were only 5 total pressures according to Pro Football Focus. 6 missed tackles. That's really good. Again, they're trying to get the ball out quick. They're trying to get the ball into space to some of their playmakers and see if they can make Oklahoma miss. And Oklahoma was up to the task. So absolutely huge. Sorry, I'm going to address this one real quick. I think this is a Zion Branch fan. Are you going to live stream when you shave your head? I don't got to shave my head. Oklahoma went 10-2. So we're good. We're golden. Don't got to do it. So boom. Thank you for that. And then a credit again to Oklahoma's defensive line because they held LSU's run game in check. They ran for 85 yards on 29 carries, but just 2.9 yards per attempt. Caden Durham, 6 carries, 42 yards. Michael Van Buren, 5 carries, 33 yards. He had the big 23-yard run that helped lead to a LSU touchdown. And then that was about it. Harlan Berry, 14 carries, 23 yards. Oklahoma was just kind of living in the backfield. They were stopping LSU's run game a lot of times, like right as they were getting the ball. Oklahoma's defensive linemen were in the backfield. So just, again, a great performance by that defensive line. Again, sans R. Mason Thomas. There was a question a little bit earlier in the show if R. Mason Thomas would be back. Well, I imagine that, okay, he's been out since the Tennessee game. It's been a month since then. And then Oklahoma wouldn't play for another 3 weeks. That's 7 weeks that he gets to heal. I think if he's going to be back, there's a pretty good chance that he could be back by the time Oklahoma plays in the college football playoff. So, I mean, it was good that Oklahoma didn't need to play him. I don't know if he would have been available. I think they were going to take a cautious approach to R. Mason Thomas. Now get to this part of the season where, hey, you get time to rest everybody, and you need it because you got a lot of guys banged up, a lot of guys dinged up, and this is a key time for your team to have an opportunity to rest. A few guys that I felt like, really stood out on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, Kendall Daniels was really good once again, 7 total tackles, having to play a whole lot more because Reggie Powers III was out for the first half. Thought he played a really, really good game. Owen Heineke continues to impress all the time. Marvin Jones Jr., I felt like maybe had one of his best games as a Sooner. He was very active with his hands, active in his pass rush. He was really, really disciplined in the run game. Thought he played a really solid game again. Of course, Peyton Bowen, dude. Remember when everybody was concerned about whether or not Peyton Bowen was actually good? Well, he's maybe been one of your MVPs of the second half of the season. You don't have as much success unless Peyton Bowen is just balling out. And now that's 2 games or 2 out of the last 3 games, the Alabama game and this game against LSU, where Peyton Bowen makes the pass breakup to finish the game on a 4th down. Can't say much more than that about the guy. He's just been absolutely phenomenal here lately. Again, has the interception, has the pass breakup, has 6 total tackles in the game, just flying around the football everywhere. The cornerback group, Eli Bowen, Cortland Guillory, Devin Jordan, they did a great job in the screen game. Jacoby Johnson was really, really good in the screen game as well. They just didn't allow LSU to pick up a lot of yards after the catch. I'm going to go to Pro Football Focus real quick and see how much yards after the catch they actually had. It wasn't a lot. They averaged 4.4 yards after the catch per reception. That's not a ton, considering they were trying to scheme up a bunch of stuff where these guys could catch the ball, get some blockers out in front of them, and then try to make some plays after the catch. Oklahoma really didn't allow them to do a whole lot of that. So again, shout out to the defense, shout out to Brent Venables and his staff for creating a defense that can create wins for this team. Again, when your offense isn't playing the way it's playing, the defense has stepped up. Again, never quit, never sulked, never was like, oh man, they're leaving us hanging out to dry again. No, they keep playing, keep battling, and keep fighting for every single inch. And that's what's so fun about this football team is even when things aren't going well, even when you're not getting much from the offense, the defense just continues to battle. And that's what has you on the verge. And really, that's what has clinched a college football playoff berth for this Oklahoma Sooners team. So love it. Love it. I know you love it. I know it's easy to look at the offense, which we're about to do, and we'll talk about it. And it's easy to complain about it and not feel optimistic and feel too excited about it. But you're still 10-2. Still 10-2 with one of the best defenses in college football. Gotta love it. We'll talk more about the offense. We'll talk more about kind of what this means for Oklahoma as a whole coming up. Respond to some of your comments over in the YouTube chat as well. We'll do that coming up here on Locked On Sooners. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Listen, John Mateer, 3 interceptions, not great. The first interception, listen, that kind of stuff happens. You get a ball tipped, it's going to fly up in the air. It's going to get picked off from time to time. Those things happen. You can't always blame a quarterback on that. I mean, if you want to really dive into the nitty gritty of some of his fundamentals and arm angles and all that, we can, but it happens, right? The second interception, bro, come on. You can't do that. You just picked up a huge, 3rd and 15 with a 29-yard completion to Isaiah Sategna, who makes an absolutely great play to go get the ball and put you in LSU territory. And with the wind, you're playing with the wind here. You're in Tate Sandel's kicking range. So you have a point. You're at a point where at the very worst, you can get 3, right? And it would be a 6-3 game at that point. But instead, you got a heat check, shoot or shoot, and you launch one that's like shooting from the logo in the NBA, and it gets picked off and then returned to, deep into Oklahoma's territory. LSU goes on to score a touchdown to make it 10-3. That's a huge swing in the game. You go from potentially going up at least 6-3, you might be able to go up 10-3 to being down 10-3. It's one of those things like, you just got the big pass play. Yes, I know the instinct is to hurry up and get to the line of scrimmage and try and catch them off guard for another one. But this team seems to play better when they play slower and under control and composed and poised. When they try to get into the hurry up stuff, it just doesn't seem to fit what they do well. So that's a moment where John Mateer, Ben Arbuckle have to, hey, listen, yes, we got the big pass play. Slow it down a mite. Keep killing clock. Keep LSU's defense on their heels. You can still play fast. Just get to the line of scrimmage and then figure out the play you want to run. That's fine. But you don't have to get to the line of scrimmage, let's snap it, and then make a hurried throw. Be cognizant of how you're playing and the tempo in which you're playing with. The third interception, I love the idea that we want to throw some back shoulder fades. I get that. But that's such a chemistry reliant throw. And I feel like John Mateer hasn't had the same chemistry with Giovanni Gibson that he had back in spring ball when everybody was talking about how good Giovanni Gibson was. Now, at that time, what was Oklahoma's cornerback situation like? And was Giovanni Gibson really that good, or was Oklahoma's cornerback situation just very inexperienced? I don't know. But again, you're in such a tight ball game. I want John Mateer to be aggressive. I want him to take some shots against LSU secondary that, again, on the outside, really good and really, really long. And they make things really, really difficult. Maybe let's not try to throw back shoulders if you don't have that chemistry down with your guy. Again, it makes you have to be on the same page, because if you're wrong and you guess wrong and your wide receiver's guessing something else, it leads to turnovers. So again, Mateer, not great, but I liked what they did, for most of the game. I mean, other than those two throws, it was largely okay. They were moving the ball at times. They were getting some things going at times. They just couldn't continue those drives and find consistency. And then in the second half, they found some things and were able to make some plays down the field. And again, it was just finishing those drives. And that's what they got to figure out. They got to figure out how to finish drives, because they did it again without much of a run game, because Torrey Blaylock's banged up and Xavier Robinson's banged up, and they don't trust Jaden Knott, and Javonte Barnes is redshirting, and you just don't have anybody. Taylor Tatum apparently was available, but you don't want to play him. The whole running back situation is such a mess, and it is so curious. It's the curious case of Oklahoma's running back situation. Thankfully, you got through the game with a win, because you did it with Febechi Wiwu making his first career start at center against an LSU defense that's actually pretty good. And there were no real issues. Now, there were some issues on some run plays where he got beat inside, and that's going to happen. He's not used to snapping the ball and then having to get there, but otherwise he played pretty good. You overcame several, false starts at home. I think I want to say Eddie Pierre-Louis had one. Michael Fasusi had one. Isaiah Sategna had one. It's wild to me that you could have that many false starts on offense. I know guys are eager to make plays and get out there and get a head start, but you can't have a false start. You just can't. So, offensively, they just keep hurting themselves. There were two drops. I know Giovanni Gibson had a drop that would have led to a big play on a first down. There was a missed call on a pass interference on Deion Burks where he got mugged and clean, according to the SEC officials. And then there was the very next play, Oklahoma catches LSU with too many men on the field, and they hit a big play, but apparently LSU calls a timeout. The refs were really good at giving LSU timeouts on plays where they should have been penalized or would have given up a big play. But that's a digression. This is just a team that, again, they found ways to win. Isaiah Sategna, once again, phenomenal. The dude is just so good. He had 121 yards on 9 catches. Again, had the 58-yard long for the touchdown. It was nice to see Deion Burks finally break one. I feel like he's just been so close. There we go. I said it. So close. So close on so many occasions to finding a big play, and just wasn't able to do it. And again, credit to Ben Arbuckle for dialing up the right play at the right time, and credit to the offense for executing it at the right time, because LSU was sending everybody and Oklahoma caught them. And sometimes that's just what happens. And Deion Burks was able to get a touchdown, and it was hopefully that unlocks some things for this offense. That throw, the Isaiah Sategna touchdown, hopefully that unlocks some things. Jaren Kanak had 6 catches for 54 yards. He was crucial on that final drive for Oklahoma, picking up tough yards after the catch, doing Jaren Kanak things. And I think that's the part where you're like, that's why you want to get him the ball more. It doesn't have to be over the middle and down the field. If you throw him the ball in the short areas and the flats, he can make plays after the catch. He had 33 yards after the catch today. 33 yards. And a lot of it came on that last catch of the day that he had, where he's just kind of bullying people. So get Jaren Kanak the ball and let's go see the guy make some things happen. Throw him some short passes into the flat. Just let him use his speed and athleticism to get you extra yards, to get you some simple yards sometimes. So hopefully they see that and they're like, hey, you know what? That's a part of our offense that we can utilize a little bit more moving forward. So I like that. Again, credit to Xavier Robinson and Torrey Blaylock for getting out there and battling. Those dudes have been banged up for weeks and they just keep showing up for this team. So whatever the future holds, those guys need to continue to be a big part of it because they've laid it all on the line for this team. And hopefully they can get healthy by the time you get to the playoff and you can find a little run game that maybe gives you a chance to do something special. So yeah, shout out to them. Again, I thought the offensive line pass protected really, really well. John Mateer had more than enough time on most occasions to make some plays down the field. Are there ways that they can continue to improve? Absolutely. They got to get better in the run game. You had a 4th and 1 or 4th and half a yard at midfield that you weren't able to convert because you weren't able to get much of a push. But again, LSU's defense really good. They only allowed 18 points per game this season. They're one of the best defenses in the SEC, despite an offense that's not been very good. And they made life really, really difficult on Oklahoma. They had something to prove. They came in here looking to upset Oklahoma and keep them out of the playoff. And they gave Oklahoma's offense everything they could handle. And Oklahoma still found enough plays to go win the game. So huge for them. This is a good, listen, it's a win, right? It's a solid win. This was an LSU team that many thought could be in the college football playoff SEC title discussion in 2025. Injuries derailed it. Big turnover on the offensive line derailed it. They fired their coach. They were playing with just a lot of pride in this one. Nobody really gave them much of a chance. They were 10-point underdogs coming into the game, which is always a dangerous place to be in the SEC. But this was a team with a winning record. They finished 7-5 on the year. And Brent Venables said it during the week. This is one of the most talented rosters that Oklahoma will have faced all year. And they played like one of the most talented rosters Oklahoma had faced all year. Maybe not on the offensive side of the ball because they've got some more talent that they can unlock. They just didn't try Oklahoma down the field a whole lot. But defensively, that's a really good defense. And we saw that defense do some really good things throughout the year. So yes, would you like Oklahoma to play cleaner, not turn the ball over? Sure. But again, you got enough points to win the game. Special teams, I thought special teams was ultimately pretty good. You get the big return for Isaiah Sategna, but giving up the big return there towards the end of the game nearly cost you. But your defense was able to overcome. And that's what complementary football is, right? If one area of the team makes a mistake, well, the other areas pick it up. And that's what they've been doing really all year, aside from that third quarter in the Texas game. Like that third quarter of the Texas game was like the only time that it was like, this thing just really isn't coming together, right? But especially over the last month, they've just battled together as a team. And they keep picking each other up. They keep, helping make up for mistakes from one area of the team. And, you're 1 for 1 from Tate Sandell on field goals. You had the punt return from Isaiah Sategna. Grayson Miller was really, really good once again, especially given the wind situation. He had 2 punts of more than 50 yards. He averaged 43.1 yards per attempt, and 2 were down inside the 20. Just a good day. Just a really good day from him. That's really kind of about it. It's a win. You're 10-2 on the season. You're headed to the college football playoff. And you may host a game. And if you're able to host a game inside Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium, Oklahoma fans who have come through all year long and have been electric for that defense get one more opportunity to impact the game. And this is my favorite part of what expanded college football playoff has brought to us, is the opportunity for fan bases to have a home playoff game. And if Oklahoma is lucky enough to host a playoff game, I know Sooner Nation is going to make that a unbearable atmosphere for the opponent, whether it's Notre Dame, whether it's Alabama coming back to town, whether it turns out to be Texas, whether it's BYU, I don't care who it is. They're not going to have a good time. It's not going to be a fun time. Let's look through some of your comments here. So many good. I want to address the quarterback situation. I know a lot of people were talking about, benching Mateer and going with Michael Hawkins Jr. And dude, that's a tough call, man. It's really tough. Like Michael Hawkins Jr., great talent. What would he have looked different? Maybe. We'll never know. I'm not going to sit here and say he couldn't have provided a spark for this offense. We know that Jackson Arnold had a short leash in 2024. Michael Hawkins Jr. had a short leash in 2024. But this team, they're ride or die with John Mateer. And whether they should have benched him or not, the coaching staff, they're riding with him. And they feel like he gives them the best opportunity to win football games. Is that true? Would Michael Hawkins Jr. be more efficient for the offense? I don't know. But John Mateer's their guy, and they're riding with it for better or for worse. And at this point, you're 10-2 with John Mateer. 9-2 with John Mateer as your quarterback. Michael Hawkins Jr. got you the 1-0 win. So, I think hindsight would be 2020 if they lost the game. Everybody would be wondering why they didn't make a quarterback change. And that'd certainly be a significant talking point, but you won the game. So, Tabs R Us asks what my thoughts are on the officiating. Well, I feel like SEC officiating has been kind of boo-boo all year long. It's not been very good. It's been inconsistent. It's been pretty inconsistently applied. It's certainly not benefited Oklahoma very often. Like since the Auburn game, when Oklahoma was able to take advantage of SEC officiating, on the Isaiah Sategna touchdown, I don't want to say they've had it out for Oklahoma, but they've certainly let a lot go against Oklahoma, whether it's the blocks in the back against Texas that allowed the Ryan Niblett touchdown, whether it's the pass interferences, the holding calls on our defensive line, whatever it is, the SEC officiating has just not been good. And Oklahoma has not gotten the benefit of the doubt very often from SEC officiating. And today was another one of those examples where I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not going to sit here and say that they've had it out for Oklahoma, but certainly could be something to that if you think, hey, maybe they're mad that Oklahoma got one over on them in the Auburn game. I don't know. 1776 was practices hosting this game, assuming against Notre Dame might be the difference maker. We need to pull off a win, and we have history with them to boot. Oh, yeah. If you could host a game, that changes everything. Changes everything. If you can host a football game in the college football playoff, if it's against Notre Dame, like the weather is not going to be a difference maker, but your crowd can be a difference maker. They haven't played anywhere like Norman this year. I'm gonna go look at the schedule real quick because I don't think that they've played anywhere that's quite like what Sooner Nation can bring to the table this season. Yeah, they played at Miami in week 1, but let's be real. Miami fans in any sport don't compare to what Sooner fans are for football. The typical narrative about Miami fans is late to arrive and a lot of t-shirt fans. Let's be for real. It's like better to be seen at a Miami game, whether it's the Heat or the Dolphins when the Dolphins are good, or the Marlins or the Miami Hurricanes. You want to be seen there, but it's like, are you really going to be like loud and vociferous? Probably not. It's not the most difficult environment to play in. Going to Pitt, Narducci didn't care about that game. He told his fan base what that game meant to them. So of course Notre Dame walked in there with and walked out with a huge win. And then they're playing at Stanford on Saturday night. Like, Stanford sucks. I'm sorry. They're terrible. And you played at Arkansas. Like, that Arkansas fan base was so ready to get rid of Sam Pittman that, like, as soon as that game kicked off, it was pretty much over. So, like, if it's Notre Dame coming to Norman, they will have not played in an environment like what our fan base is going to create on that Saturday in the college football playoff. So, yeah. Burning Papers. Matilda's managed to not let throwing 3 interceptions in a game bother him. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying now. Matilda manages to not let throwing 3 interceptions in a game bother him. Yes, he is one of those guys that, listen, shooters shoot, right? If you're a shooter and you're 0 for 10 from the field, what is your coach going to tell you to keep doing, right? Keep shooting. They want you to keep shooting the ball. They don't want you to stop shooting because they don't want you to take they don't want you to take a step back in your aggressiveness. Sometimes that's going to kill you. And it almost did tonight. It did against Texas. You had a turnover or 2 against Ole Miss. Sometimes it's going to hurt you. You were able to overcome them today. Would you be able to overcome them in the playoff? I don't know that. I don't know if you'd be able to. But you were able to today, and you were able to do enough to stay alive. So, again, shooters shoot. John Mateer's a gunslinger. You got to have him shoot, throwing some balls down the field and attacking secondaries. Can't live in the underneath game. You can't live, within 5 yards on the line of scrimmage. You got to throw the ball down the field, and John Mateer did that. Today he had, let's see. He had 14 throws over 10 yards down the field. He was 5 of 14. Okay. Not great. Definitely not great. But he was 3 of 6 on throws 20 or more yards down the field with a touchdown and an interception. So last week he was 0 for 6 on throws 20 yards or more down the field. This week, 3 for 6. That's improvement. You got to keep attacking down the field to make teams respect that, hey, I'm willing to throw the ball down the field sometimes. And yeah, you want to convert on those. Absolutely you do. But if you don't throw them, you can't convert on them. So you got to keep going down the field. Lastly, want to just talk about Brent Venables. And I know we've done this a lot this year, but this was just an important win for the Brent Venables era to be able to finish the season off like this and go 10-2, put themselves in a position to make the playoff, to get a win when they were expected to win, to get a win when you had 3 turnovers and it didn't look like you were going to get enough offensively. You were able to get the win. Brent Venables has turned Oklahoma into a playoff team after going 6-7 a year ago. Now they're a playoff team. Now they've built this thing into a defense in particular that is sustainable. You're going to have good defense under Brent Venables. You've got a lot of guys that are going to be back next year that are playing key roles for this defense this year. You've got an offense that, hey, it's not great, but let's consider that we're starting 3 freshmen along that offensive line still. Michael Fasusi at left tackle, Eddie Pierre-Louis at left guard, Ryan Foje, he's bounced between right tackle, right guard. Find that guy a position, let him continue to develop, and he'll get better and better and better. You could have 4 of your 5 starting offensive linemen back next year. And again, 3 of those guys are freshmen. How much different will they look this time next year versus right now? You know, you've been able to overcome just a lot of inconsistency on offense where, like last year, you had no consistency on offense, but you went 6-7. You couldn't find ways to win those games against Ole Miss, against Missouri, against who else had I felt like there was a couple other close games. Tennessee was a game that was probably closer than the score indicated. You couldn't find ways to win those games. This year, you found ways to win those games. And now it's about taking the next few weeks to figure out some things offensively that give you an opportunity to go make some noise in the playoff. But Brent Venables has done what he came here to do with the defense, and that's establish a defensive culture and identity that's built on toughness, physicality, aggression, and intensity. And that's what we get. So any team that comes up against Oklahoma is going to have to overcome a defense that does not give up a lot of points. They were averaging 14 points per game allowed coming into the game. They allowed 13. It's actually going to lower that point per game average against LSU going into the playoff. So Brent Venables is taking care of business on that part. He's created a culture that I think every Oklahoma fan can be proud of. He's created a recruiting base and a lot of recruiting momentum over the last couple of weeks. My goodness, they got another 2027 commit in Crew Jones on Saturday night. They just keep building and building and building because people want to come play for Brent Venables. And they want to be a part of the culture that he's created, be a part of the program that he has built. And there's been a lot of talk about Lincoln Riley in the comments and how USC is missing the playoffs. Weren't able to make the playoffs before Oklahoma did. Kind of speaks for itself. And they're in an easier conference. USC has a much easier path to the college football playoff in the Big Ten than Oklahoma has in the SEC, and they still weren't able to do it. And so all of the talk that was out there about Brent Venables after 2022, after 2024, about how Oklahoma couldn't win with him. They'd never be able to win close games. They'd never be able to win tough games. Brent Venables has done it. He's answered all the questions. Will they win in the playoff? Who knows? I don't know. But this is a team that they've made themselves a contender. They've put themselves in a position to make noise. They're playing with house money at this point. Nobody had them beating Tennessee. Nobody had them beating Alabama. A lot of people thought that Missouri was going to be where the run ended. And listen, maybe nobody thought they'd beat LSU. But after LSU went up 10-3, all of the boo birds kind of started coming out of the woodwork nationally talking about how this Oklahoma team doesn't deserve to be in the playoff. Deserve's got nothing to do with it. Oklahoma's earned their way into the playoff. You're not giving Oklahoma anything. They've earned it by going 10-2 against what everybody thought was going to be the toughest schedule in America. Oklahoma would be lucky to win 8 games, 7 games. Brent Venables was on the hot seat going into the season. And yet here we are, an Oklahoma team that's gone 10-2 with wins over Bama and Tennessee on the road. Beat LSU, beat Missouri, beat Michigan. Teams that were all ranked at one point in time in this season. This is a phenomenal coaching job by Brent Venables to turn this thing around after the Ole Miss game, to challenge his players to keep fighting, to keep battling, and to shut out all the noise and go play ball. This Brent Venables' team is doing all the things that nobody thought they could do. Again, people thought they'd be lucky to win 10 games. People thought they'd be lucky to win 8 games. I remember Dusty Dvorak talking about before the season, 8-4 would be considered a great season for Oklahoma. And people were kind of buying that. And listen, Dusty Dvorak, legend. He knows a ton about football. One of the smart football minds. 8-4 is not a great season at Oklahoma. It would have been a solid season. It might have been a satisfactory season, but it wouldn't have been a good season or a great season. But Oklahoma defied the impossible to go win 10 games and put themselves in the College Football Playoff Berth. So there you have it. So we'll talk more about this game. We'll talk more about what it means for the Oklahoma Sooners. We'll talk about all the things that happened on the recruiting trail. Man, we're going to talk about Texas because I'm so tired of Texas fans trying to act like they deserve to be in the playoff after going 9-3 and losing to Florida. Miss me with all that. And the cowardice in which they're talking about, oh, we shouldn't schedule Ohio State because that loss kept us up. Beat Florida and nobody cares. Get over yourselves. You lost. You're done. I know it's hard for you to watch Oklahoma go to the playoff, but you're done. So we'll talk about that. We'll debate Oklahoma and BYU's playoff resumes because a lot of BYU fans think that Oklahoma doesn't deserve to be in the playoff. We'll have that discussion as well. Again, I don't care what it looks like. All that matters is that it says W next to 10 games for the Oklahoma Sooners. Shout out to Brent Venables, his staff, Jim Nagy and his staff, John Mateer, even the defensive side of the ball, Isaiah Sategna. The dude just keeps coming through with big game after big game for the Oklahoma Sooners. Is he up over 1,000 yards? I think he's over 1,000 yards on the season now after his day today. I'm going to look at that real quick because we got to talk about it. Like that's the first 1,000-yard season for an Oklahoma wide receiver for in a long, long time. Let's see. Okay, not quite 1,000 yards, but he's close. He's going to be at 948 receiving yards, which might still be one of the best receiving yards in for an Oklahoma Sooner in quite some time. I'll have to go back and look at that. I'm sure Mike Houck from the athletic department has that stat out there, but yeah, he's having one of the best Oklahoma wide receivers seasons maybe since 2019. No, Marvin Mims. I think Marvin Mims went over 1,000 in 2022, maybe, or at least was really close to it. So anyway, that's going to do it for today's Locked On Sooners Live. Again, thanks so much for being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Sorry, I'm watching the comments flying over there in the chat. Make sure you follow my guy Jay over at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, for more Oklahoma Sooners coverage. You can follow me at John 9 Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, I'm John Williams. Boomer Sooner.